Inspired medicine is a term that I have coined to describe a medicine that is based on inspiration but backed by education. Is it possible that one of the reasons why we have met upon a brick wall as it relates to eradicating COVID-19 is because our medicine is based on education rather than seeking inspiration from an all-knowing creator? In this segment, I begin to take a look at the persons that were charged with diagnosing health conditions. Men that were just educated or men that were educated and inspired as well. So let's look at dealing with contagious infections. So persons who had contagious infections conditions were brought to suitably qualified persons to be diagnosed. In this case, they were brought to the Cohen or priest. And I want you to understand that in the scripture, the priests were not only mandated to deal with spiritual situations, but their scope of activity, their scope of oversight included from health condition to judiciary responsibilities to spiritual responsibilities. So if you notice, there are no mentions of physicians in the scriptures before Luke in Colossians 4 verse 14. The reason was that people were tended to physically and spiritually by the same set of persons. Alright, so the priests were given that responsibility. They were trained as it relates to natural medicines. They were trained as it relates to judiciary life, which is the law. They were trained as it relates to spiritual responsibilities. And so they had a very overarching responsibility that included a wide scope of activities. And so that is the reason why I believe that every spiritual leader should have some knowledge of health practices, or they should have knowledge as it relates to dealing with health, because physical and spiritual health goes hand in hand. All right, so dealing with contagious diseases, persons weren't just it wasn't an approach where anybody would just deal with it. In the scripture, the approach was a very scientific one, in which persons who had any form of sickness had to go to a trained professional, a trained person, so that they could be diagnosed. Very importantly, in this case, they were sent to the priest, and that is in Leviticus chapter 13. So again, the scriptural approach is a very scientific, very methodical approach that wasn't rooted in superstition. And so I believe that, based on what I'll be sharing with you today, I'm going to be sharing with you why I believe the scripture is can be trusted as an authority to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak that we're having. And I'm also going to be sharing with you what the scripture says are the natural herbal remedies which can be employed, which have been employed for thousands of years, and which will give effective results. All right, so first of all, the persons were instructed to go to the priest. They were told to go to the Cohens, because the Cohens had protective gears. And these protective gears were far better than the N95 gears that our health professionals have. I'm going to read Exodus 28 verse 3, and it says, "And thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office." And so the Creator, Yahuwah, had men, he had people who he had invested wisdom in, and these persons were given the wisdom to make special protective gears for these priests to minister in. In Ephesians 6 verse 11, the scripture calls them the whole armor. As a matter of fact, in Ephesians 6 verse 11, we see the scripture talks about putting on the whole armor of Yah, and that whole armor is presented as a Roman attire. No, the whole armor which is a spiritual garment, is found in in Exodus 28 verse 3. Verse 4 says, "And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, a mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office." And now, this verse tells us that the priests were given about 8 pieces of garments, and these pieces of garments were special because they were made of special material, and these special material had what we call electromagnetic frequency and a number of other what we call metaphysical properties. You see, what happened is that a lot of people now do not believe the scriptures because science has separated physics from metaphysics. And so metaphysics and physics were one and the same. Chemistry and alchemy was one and the same. And so these priests were not only trained in physics but metaphysics. They were not only trained in chemistry but alchemistry as well. "And they shall take gold and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen." That's Exodus 28 verse 5. "And they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, and of purple, of scarlet, and of fine twine and linen with cunning work." Now, a lot of times people read the scripture and think that everything there is just doesn't have a meaning. Everything in the scripture not only has a physical meaning, but it has a metaphysical meaning. There are scientific reasons why these things are done, and these things were instructed. All right, and so the priest was made. The priest's clothing was made from material that complements the atomic frequency number of the body. And I'm not going to get the chance to go into that. But every single person, every single thing, everything around us, from animate to inanimate objects, have what is called an atomic frequency number. It has been proven that healthy bodies, healthy people who are healthy, resonates a frequency of 62 to 70 megahertz, and that when you get sick, it drops to about 58 megahertz. So there's an atomic frequency that we resonate. And so there are certain fabrics that will, if you wear something, if you wear a garment with a lower atomic frequency number than your atomic frequency number, then what is going to happen is that it's going to bring down your atomic frequency number from the 62 to 70 range to the 58 range. As a matter of fact, when you get sick, one of the things that happens is that your body is filled with bacteria and pathogens. Bacteria and pathogens have a very low atomic frequency number. And so if you have a lot of bacteria, if you have a lot of parasites, then what is going to happen is that it's going to lower your atomic frequency number. If you don't have a lot, then your atomic frequency number is going to stay in or stay close to that 62 or 70 range. There are also foods. There's alcohol, for example, that lowers your atomic frequency number. There are certain foods that lower your atomic frequency number. Cooked food on a whole lowers your atomic frequency number. Wearing fabrics that are not natural lowers your atomic frequency number. As a matter of fact, there are 2 fabrics that will help your atomic frequency number, and those 2 fabrics are linen and cotton. So linen has an atomic frequency number of about 100, similar to cotton. So when you wear these fabrics, what they do is that they raise your atomic frequency number. And that is the reason why when you go into the hospital, you will see that the beds, the sheets that are on the bed are usually made from linen, because it raises your atomic frequency number. The bandages that you use is made from linen because it also helps to increase your atomic frequency number. Of course, these fabrics are also breathable fabrics, so they encourage the flow of oxygen. Oxygen also increases your atomic frequency number. Pollutants or toxins lowers your atomic frequency number. But the point that I want to make is that we carry an atomic frequency number, and so the garment that was given to the priests, their garment was instructed that their garments be made from linen. Now linen was made from flax, and flax, the Hebrew word for flax, is the word ruach. which in English means spirit. So when you wear linen and when you wear cotton, it is the closest you can come to being naked, even though you are clothed. Remember, when our first parents were made, they were made without clothes so that their body could breathe properly. And so the closest you can come to being naked, yet being clothed, is wearing linen or wearing cotton. Because again, these two fabrics increase your atomic frequency number. And that was what the priests' garments were made of, along with all the other precious stones and metals that in and of themselves had different atomic frequency number and had different healing properties. All right, so let's look on the first guideline. I want to look at the first guideline, the first scriptural guideline as it relates to dealing with COVID-19. Remember, we're looking on what we call the method of approach. We're looking at the rules of engagement. So one of the first thing we want to look at is the guidelines, the first guidelines as it relates to dealing with COVID-19.